Hello, my name is Joseph Florian Gabicka. I was born in 1986, October 30th, Huntington Hospital, New York. The parents of Denise and Anthony Galbicka, 4 sisters, Rachel, Mary, Sarah, Susanna, 2 brothers, Daniel and Luke. Sorry about that. Got a text. This is my testimony. Up to date, I guess you can say. Had a strong feeling tonight. Just came from the beach. Really good fellowship with Christ, God, and I wanted to do this. I've been needing to do this, to give my full 100% testimony before and after. I recently was just fired / forced to put my resume in. It's a very long story. And I really think that God's trying to show me for the billionth time why. Well, let's get back to the story. Okay. I was 4 years old when we moved from... Excuse me. I was 4 years old when my parents we moved from New York to Florida. My dad was a pastor. He was a pastor in New York. Had a big church up there. I was only 4 when... It's a family of 7, just so you know. We moved down when I was 4 years old to Palm City, Florida. My dad had a lot of youth groups that he had brought from New York down to Florida at the time, and one of the churches offered him a job down here, and to make a long story short, we ended up moving down here. It was probably the best thing for the family at the time, I assume. Not assume, I guess. I think it was. Anyway, we moved into 686 Southwest Woodside Court. Big family, 4 sisters, 2 brothers. Awesome family, awesome childhood, awesome growing up. It was very structured around Christ, and we went through a lot of youth groups, a lot of church. Awesome family. Would not trade any single moment, any single one of them for anything. Very structured around Christ. I was growing up in 686. It was a nice cul-de-sac. It was really, really awesome. And I was 6 years old when I gave my life to Christ. It was after a church service at regular Sunday school, and I was in the pool at our house, and I asked Christ to come into my heart and change my life and confess I was a sinner, and I gave my life to Christ then. And it has been a journey, to say the least. Not just a journey, it's been I wouldn't trade it for anything. I know that I'm beyond going to be in paradise with Him and heaven, but this philosophy over Christians don't have a hard or tough life or whatnot, or it's not easy, it's completely false. It's, growing up, let's go, probably jumping topics here and there, but growing up was fun, really fun. We grew up in 686 and went to Palm City Elementary, and really good structure. Growing up, good disciplined dad, but really loving. Mom was awesome. Sisters and brothers were awesome. Going to church a lot. And then, everything was fine, and then I turned 10. And that's when stuff got a little tricky with growing up and whatnot. My parents weren't getting along at the time, and my mom and dad my dad kind of had a different philosophy on what his interpretation of a marriage was, I guess you can say. My mom had a different one. At least this is my perspective from the 6th child. They weren't getting along, and to make a long story short, my parents divorced. That was extremely tough on me and my younger brother. Tough on the entire family, but we weren't used to anything, and we were used to everything except. We were used to growing up and being completely content and just completely fine, and everything out of nowhere just changed. Our entire lives just changed, and it was very, very hard. I do remember the dining room table where my dad had asked, where people would like to live and which kids, or that was tough because I don't think it really. I don't know if it was the best bet for the kids to ask him like that, but I had always been a daddy's boy, so to make a long story short, me, my sister Mary, and Danny went to go live with my dad, my brother Luke, sister Sarah, sister Susanna, and sister Rachel went to go live with my mom. The divorce was very, very. Just give me 1 second. It's fine. Very tough. Not just on me and my brother. Yeah, we're the youngest and whatnot, but it was tough on everybody. But I never, how I dealt with it was my parents. My youngest brother was a mommy's boy at the time, and that was my best friend, my little brother Luke, and he went to go with my mom. I was the daddy's boy, so I went to go with my dad, and I was 10, he was 8, and I used to remember times even in elementary school where I would see him, and he's bawling his eyes out, coming up to me in the cafeteria and whatnot, and it was hard on him. It was detrimental to both of us, but how I cope with my feelings was I just pretended like everything was fine and bottled up inside. To a point where I pretty much gave myself this mind thing right here, it's a great verse in the Bible. It says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And by golly, it is so true. So true. Oh man, it's so true. I ended up giving myself pretty much irritable bowel syndrome. I think I was 10 or probably 11 at the time. I was living with my dad and everything. It was maybe a year past after the divorce, and maybe less than a year actually, because I ended up moving in with my mom. It's what the judge decided because I was under 12, and I gave myself this mind thing where my stomach was hurting really bad one night, and then I had this beyond strong fear of always having to go number 2 somewhere and not being able to have this bathroom. It sounds funny, but man, I tell you what, it took over my mind and it took over my life to a point where there were times where I couldn't even go to school because I was scared that I wouldn't go. I wouldn't. Teachers wouldn't let me go if for some reason I wasn't close enough to a bathroom, and it all sounds beyond ridiculous and whatnot, but I tell you what, it is so true what God says about that. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, because it consumed me. I was always overweight, but very active in high school or middle school at the time, and me, after, not necessarily the dust settled, but after we kind of got used to the divorce family and whatnot, and, life went on, we had to adapt and whatnot. It was hard on everyone, but life goes on. We got stronger. Not one of us, I don't think any one of us really ever lost their faith. I know that this is my testimony, so I never lost my faith, that's for sure. I was very overweight, always, my entire life. Ate horribly, always looking for that magic pill or whatnot, I guess you can say. And I think I was 15 and 16 in middle school or high school at the time, or we were still going to Energizers, was one of the youth groups. Hidden Oaks Middle School, right across the street was Horizons, and we grew up on Kids Crew. Very church oriented, and that never stopped. Thank God it didn't, because it was tough, the divorce, because they were bickering back and forth by our parents, and then also by kids, maybe here and there about the other parent, and we're at a point now where it's 1,000 times better. We're all grown up, but this is during the time. Where are we at in my testimony story here? I was 16, I think, now, and before 16, I was overweight. Like I said, always looking for that magic pill. Always active, playing basketball and all. I was just very, very bad at the sweets and stuff when it was not traumatizing, or I wouldn't blame it on the divorce. I was just always overweight kid, always eating cupcakes, always eating Coca-Cola, and just drinking eating real bad right before bed too, and just even I could have been a lot worse, but I was still active. But 16 came along and everything was fine, and then I remember being in high school, and this is where everything kind of takes a little turn. I had started drugs a little bit because I'm not going to blame this on being a PK or a pastor's kid, but we're very much scrutinized growing up in the church. You can't venture out or hang out with certain people or whatnot, and you can't do this. You can't. It's not that you can't. It's just that you don't want to, because you're kind of raised that way because you don't want the parent, which is in the church, a pastor or youth director. That's what our dad was, to look bad in front of other people, and he shouldn't look bad. He should have kids that are, well raised and well mannered and shouldn't be into that stuff. But at the same time, the pressure of kind of owning up to something like that and walking the straight line your entire life is extremely hard. And then the divorce happened, so I mean, everyone looks. My dad didn't look as good as a pastor or youth director before, because now he's divorced, which is totally against the Bible. It wasn't him that divorced my mom; it was my mom that divorced my dad. But that's something that goes against what Christ wants and what He says biblically. But that's separate. I mean, anyway. I'm 16 at the time, and I remember being in sophomore and in high school, and I wasn't depressed. This is where my entire story. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't suicidal. I remember being the sophomore, I had 2 or 3 academics out of 4 electives, and it was tough. And I remember, you know what, maybe if I just write my dad a note, not saying I was suicidal, but, well, no, actually the note did state, I had some suicidal thoughts here and there. It's really hard. I'm depressed. But I want to repeat this. I wasn't. I was stating these things, but I wasn't, because I wanted him to do something for me with this letter. I wanted to get these electives changed so I didn't have these electives so hard. Why I chose to do it this way, don't ever ask me. But man, did my life change for the better and worse? I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know. You. That's your opinion. Anyway, after writing this letter to him, I left it in the morning. Went to school. Later that day, I got a call from the guidance counselor office over the, normal day at school, over the intercom, saying, "Gabeka, please come to the front office." And guidance counselor teacher is there, and lo and behold, there's my dad with the note. And I said, I'm thinking in my head, this might be good. Maybe I'll get my classes changed, blah, blah, blah. It didn't work like that. It really didn't, because they thought I was suicidal. And to make a long story short, they wanted me to go with them or my dad suggested, and so did my guidance counselor, say, let's take him to Savannah's mental institution and get him checked out. And man, did it backfire. I had started drugs, but not just marijuana at the time, once in a blue moon, not like super stoner or whatnot. But so we get to this mental institution. They want to take me in, and here I am, 6'4", 240 pounds, kind of chunky, overweight, whatnot. And I didn't want to go in because I knew for a fact no one believed me I wasn't suicidal, because I'm writing this note. What, just because classes are hard? So they have to bring you in and whatnot. So I was in there for 3 days. I think it was 2003, the end of January, for 3 days. And I remember them putting me on 3 different antidepressants or antipsychotics. Abilify, Lamictal, and Zoloft, I think it was at the time. Now, what these drugs do to you, especially if you don't have an actual problem, or even if you do have the problem, the first side effect of all of them are depression. Strange, I know, yes. I've done many research on this. I think it takes serotonin and dopamine levels in your brain and just kind of re-registers them back and forth. If something crazy happens in your life, it might be, this is something normal where a huge death happens, you can get really depressed, or something really happy. It just kind of recirculates, so